The snow whispered as it fell in the godswood of Winterfell, blanketing the old weirwood tree in a thin layer of silence. Bran sat still, eyes clouded with the eerie hue of greensight. The roots beneath him pulsed, ancient, deep, and soaked in blood and time. Then he saw it, a tower, screams, a young Ned Stark, face taut with sorrow and purpose, knee-deep in the scent of iron and death. He stepped over bodies of fallen Targaryen guards, led by Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning. Ned's sword was stained, but his soul was heavier. Inside the Tower of Joy, Bran watched his father kneel beside Lyanna Stark, her skin pale, her breathing ragged. Blood pooled beneath her, soaking the bed like a sacrifice made to gods, no longer listening. "Promise me, Ned," she whispered. Then came the truth. The child swaddled in her arms was no Stark bastard. He was Aegon Targaryen, the last hope of a dying dynasty. And Ned Stark, the man revered for his honor, became the greatest liar the realm had ever known. Bran snapped out of the vision, with a gasp, falling back into the snow. His heart thudded in his chest like a war drum. This changed everything. Jon Snow, his brother, was not a Snow at all. He was a king, the rightful king, and no one knew, no one but him. Winterfell had grown quiet again since the fall of Ramsay Bolton. Sansa moved like a queen through its halls, her voice calm but commanding. Jon, crowned king in the north by loyal bannermen, had finally found purpose. Yet he bore the crown like a man bears a wound. The burden of it weighed heavily, and he felt no joy in victory. Bran returned to Winterfell that very evening. His carriage, plain and frostbitten, was welcomed with surprise and silent confusion. He barely spoke. His face, colder than the wind, carried something heavy beneath it. That night, Bran summoned Jon alone to the crypts beneath the castle. As they stood before the statue of Ned Stark, Bran spoke the words that shattered everything. "You're not my brother, Jon." Jon blinked, his lips curling into a confused smirk. "That's a strange way to greet someone." Bran's voice was steel. "You are not Jon Snow. You are Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark, born in the Tower of Joy. My father lied to everyone to keep you alive." The silence was thicker than the snow outside. Jon laughed at first. Then he saw Bran's face, calm but devoid of doubt. "I saw it," Bran added. "With the three-eyed raven's gift. I saw her die. I saw your birth." Jon staggered, back like he'd been punched. "You're telling me my whole life was a lie?" Bran nodded. "To protect you, because Robert Baratheon would have killed you the moment he found out. You are the heir to the Iron Throne, Jon. Not Daenerys. You." Jon couldn't sleep that night. He sat by the window, Ghost curled at his feet, watching the wind claw against the glass. He thought of Ned, the man who raised him, taught him. Honor stood by him when no one else would. A lie, or the deepest truth hidden in silence? He thought of Daenerys, her dragons, her growing army, her belief that she was the last Targaryen. She wouldn't accept this easily. She wouldn't step aside. Jon knew her pride, her fire. This would set something terrible in motion, but how could he lie any longer? Far to the south, in Dragonstone, Daenerys stared into the fire of her chambers, unaware that her strongest ally, her trusted northern king, now held a truth that threatened to eclipse her destiny. Back at Winterfell, Sansa demanded answers. She wasn't a girl anymore. She was cunning now, cold when she needed to be. When Jon told her, her expression cracked only slightly. "You're not my brother by name," she whispered, "but you'll always be one by heart." But the wheels in her mind were already turning. "Daenerys won't like this." "She doesn't have to," Jon said. "I'm not looking for a throne." "But thrones look for those born to wear them," she replied, and with that the first step into a different war had begun, not of swords and dragons, but of secrets and bloodlines, a war where truth was the most dangerous weapon of all. The days grew darker at Winterfell, not just with winter's reach, but with the storm rising between truth and loyalty. Jon kept to himself, wandering the ramparts or the godswood, his heart tangled in thoughts of fire and ice. He felt like a traitor to the man who raised him, and a stranger to the bloodline he never asked for. The truth Bran shared weighed on him heavier than any sword. Word spread quietly, only to a few. Sansa knew, Arya overheard. Bran told Samwell Tarly, who confirmed it with records from the Citadel. A secret this large was too volatile to remain quiet for long, and yet it was Jon himself who felt like an imposter. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see a Targaryen. He didn't see royalty. He saw the same man who grew up in the shadow of his siblings, who never fit in, who found solace only at the wall and on the battlefield. Sansa was the first to confront him about what came next. "You can't keep this hidden, Jon. Daenerys will find out. I don't want the throne, Sansa. But the people might. The lords of the north, the Riverlands, even the Vale. They swore fealty to you because they trust you. They don't trust her." He looked at her, pain in his voice. "You want me to fight her?" "I want you to be smart," she said sharply. "I've seen what ambition does to rulers, and I've seen what happens when they believe their claim is destiny." Far away in Dragonstone, Varys and Tyrion were already whispering about concerns. Varys had observed Jon closely, his humility, his popularity among the people, and his strange rapport with Daenerys. Something didn't add up. Varys's network of spies had sent whispers of Bran's strange visions, and an old record from the Citadel found its way into his hands. Varys approached Tyrion in the war room, parchment in hand. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. Tyrion read it. A secret marriage between Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Legitimate, legal, the kind that produced true heirs. "This is treason," Tyrion whispered. "It's also truth," Varys countered, "and truth doesn't care who it destroys." Tyrion's face tightened. "She'll burn anyone who challenges her claim." "And he won't," Varys said. "That's the problem." As Dany's fleet prepared to sail north, a raven reached her chambers. She read Bran's message once, twice. Her breath caught in her chest. The words were plain but impossible. "The king in the north is not a snow. He is Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, your nephew, your rival, your blood." Drogon stirred behind her, as if sensing her shift in mood. Her hands shook. Not from fear, but from rage. Back in Winterfell, Jon stood at his father's statue again, torn between silence and duty. "What would you have done?" he asked aloud. Bran's voice echoed from the shadows behind him. "He chose love, and he chose peace. That's what it cost him." Jon turned. "But his peace brought war." Bran stepped closer. "Only because people like Robert Baratheon couldn't stand the idea of a Targaryen ruling. And now Daenerys wants the same throne, with fire and blood." "You could stop it," Bran said quietly. Jon's voice broke. "I don't want to. But it's not about want anymore. It's about what's right." The next day, Daenerys arrived at Winterfell. The people watched from rooftops and castle walls. Dragons screeched overhead, casting shadows that sent ravens scattering. Dany rode proudly, regal and commanding, but her eyes searched for Jon, no longer a lover, but a threat. The reunion was cold. She embraced him, but there was a stiffness in her touch. "Can we talk?" she said through a tight smile. In the Godswood, where secrets lived and died, he told her the truth. Her face was unreadable at first. Then the fury began to flicker in her eyes. "They lied to me," she hissed. "Everyone lied." "No one knew," Jon said. "Not even me." "I don't want the throne, Daenerys. She looked at him long and hard. "But others will want it for you. Varys, Tyrion, your sister." "I'll make it clear," he promised. She stepped closer. "Swear to me, Jon. Swear that you will. Not claim it. That you will never speak of it again." His heart twisted. She was asking for silence, the kind that Ned once gave, and it cost him everything. Jon looked into her eyes and said nothing. The silence between them stretched like a sword drawn halfway from its scabbard. Jon didn't swear. He didn't promise, and Daenerys saw that as clearly as the snow beneath her boots. She turned without another word and walked out of the godswood, her cloak whipping behind her like the tail of a dragon. Jon stayed behind, surrounded by the ancient trees, as if hoping the old gods could offer wisdom. But they said nothing, just like Ned. The next morning, the castle was on edge. Tormund noticed it in the way the Unsullied stood tighter along the walls, eyes scanning the courtyards like they expected betrayal. Arya noticed it in the way Dany's handmaids avoided looking anyone in the eye. Even Sansa, usually composed, felt it. She found Jon alone in the war room, his knuckles white around the edge of the table. "What did she say?" she asked. "She asked me to lie," he replied, "to forget who I am." Sansa didn't speak for a long moment. "Are you going to?" He looked at her with tired eyes. "Can you forget who you are?" "No," she said, "and neither can she. You think love will hold her back? Love never stopped Cersei." Jon turned to the window. Outside, the dragons circled the sky. "I don't want to be king, but maybe you need to be," Sansa said. "Before she becomes a queen, no one can stop." Far beneath the crypts, Varys whispered to Tyrion under the flickering light of the tombs. They stood among the dead Starks, as if invoking the wisdom of ghosts. "She will burn it all." "Down, Tyrion," Varys said. "I've seen that look before. It's the same look her father had." "You're talking treason," Tyrion warned. "I'm talking survival," Varys countered. "If Jon is who Bran says he is not just the better claim. He is the better hope." Tyrion shook his head. "He won't betray her. But he won't stop her either." Varys stepped closer, voice low. "Then maybe we should." That night, Bran called Jon once more. His voice was cold but not cruel. "You cannot bury this truth forever," Jon sighed. "I've spent my life trying to be honorable. Now honor might get everyone killed. Sometimes lies do the same." Bran turned his head, eyes still distant, as though half lost in vision. "She's not going to wait for peace. She's waiting for fear. And when the world fears her more than it fears you, she will take the throne, even if it means burning cities to ash." Jon stared at him. "And what do I do? Raise an army against her?" Bran shook his head. "You raise yourself. The people will follow." A raven flew that night from Winterfell. Then another. Messages penned in ink darker than the winter sky. One went to Yara Greyjoy, another to the Vale, a third to the Riverlands. The messages carried only one truth: Aegon Targaryen lives, and he is the true heir to the Iron Throne. When Daenerys heard, she stormed through Winterfell like fire through dry grass. Her voice thundered in the hall. "Who sent them? Who spread?" "The letters." The council room fell silent. Jon was not present. Sansa stood calmly, her expression unreadable. "You did this," Daenerys accused. "I did what was necessary," Sansa said. "The realm deserves the truth." "The realm deserves peace," Dany snapped. "Then why does peace terrify you?" Daenerys' eyes glowed with rage. "I should burn your tongue from your mouth." Tyrion stepped forward. "Enough," she turned on him. "You still serve me, don't you?" Tyrion met her gaze. "I serve the realm, and you're losing it." Outside, Jon prepared the soldiers for the march south. The war against Cersei was not yet won, But now a second war brewed just beneath the surface, one of thrones, of names, and of fire. He looked at the faces around him. Davos, Grey Worm, Gendry, Arya, all waiting, watching, wondering. He spoke with quiet authority. This is not about crowns. This is about what's right. Arya, ever blunt, tilted her head. And what if doing what's right makes you a king? Jon clenched his jaw. Then I'll wear the crown like I wore the cloak of the Night's Watch, only because no one else will. Above them, the dragons roared, unsettled. And in the dark chambers of her room, Daenerys wept, not for love lost, but for the throne she now feared was slipping from her fingers. The ride south to King's Landing felt heavier than any battle march before. Snow fell in soft waves, but the air carried the weight of betrayal, fear, and uncertain loyalties. Jon rode at the front, his expression carved from stone, flanked by the men who had fought beside him against Ramsay, the dead, and countless other horrors. But this war was different. Beside him rode Daenerys. Her silver-blonde hair whipped in the wind, her face unreadable beneath her hood. They hadn't spoken since the council. She hadn't asked for his presence. He came because he must. Because if fire and blood were marching on the capital, someone needed to temper it with reason. Tyrion and Varys rode behind them in a smaller carriage, faces drawn. Every conversation between them now was laced with subtle warnings and cautious phrasing. Varys grew more bold with each mile. She will not stop, Tyrion. You saw it in her eyes. Tyrion nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Then what are you prepared to do? Tyrion closed his eyes for a moment, then whispered, something I may never forgive myself for. In the camp that night, Sansa and Arya sat by the fire. They'd joined the march, not out of duty but out of distrust. Neither believed Daenerys would hold back if King's Landing resisted, and Sansa knew Jon would put himself in danger, trying to talk peace to someone born of war. She'll burn the city, Arya said flatly. She won't care who's inside. Sansa nodded, sipping her wine. That's what scares me. She's too dangerous to live. Sansa didn't respond immediately. She looked at her sister, truly looked at her. The assassin, the survivor, the blade in the dark. Not yet, Sansa whispered. Let Jon try, just once. As the city loomed on the horizon, King's Landing was anything but prepared. Cersei's spies had told her of Jon's heritage, of Daenerys' rage, of the dragons circling overhead. But what interested her most was the tension growing between them. She has fire, Cersei said to Qyburn, but fire burns everyone. Eventually, even those who stand too close. She sent emissaries not to Daenerys, but to the lords of Westeros, whispering of madness, of a Targaryen king raised by Starks, a king the realm could trust. Jon's name began to stir in cities that had once cursed the north. The night before the siege, Tyrion found Jon alone in his tent, sharpening Longclaw, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. She won't listen to reason, Tyrion said quietly. I have to try. And if she doesn't, what then? Jon looked up. Then I'll stop her, if I can. Tyrion hesitated, then stepped closer. I need to know, Jon. If it comes. Do it. If the people are burning, will you end her? Jon gripped the hilt of his sword. I will do what must be done, but gods forgive me if it comes to that. As dawn broke, Daenerys stood at the edge of the city, Drogon perched beside her. Rhaegal soared overhead. The Golden Company lined the city gates, and the bells of surrender hung silent in the wind. Jon pleaded one final time, approaching her, quietly as soldiers readied for war. There are children in those walls, he said. Ring the bells, let them surrender. She looked at him, eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but fury. They followed Cersei, they let her rule them. They deserve to see what justice looks like. This isn't justice, Jon whispered. It's vengeance. She stepped, closer, almost trembling. And you, What are you now, Jon Snow? The rightful king, the betrayer, or the man too weak to take what's his? Jon couldn't respond. His silence again spoke volumes, and that was all the answer she needed. When the battle began, it wasn't a siege, it was a reckoning. The dragons tore through the sky, setting fire to walls and men alike. The Unsullied charged, fearless. The city began to scream. Then came the moment. The bells rang. Surrender. Jon turned to Daenerys on the hilltop. For a brief second, he thought she'd stop, that she'd listen, that there was still a woman inside the flame, but she leaned forward, and Drogon roared. The Red Keep was soon choked in fire. Civilians burned, soldiers dropped their swords and fled. Tyrion watched in horror. Arya raced into the city, blade in hand, not for Cersei but for Daenerys. And Jon, he stood in the ashes, surrounded by the screams of the innocent, realizing that the only person who could stop her was him. Jon had seen death before. He'd fought whites, watched the dead rise, slain men on muddy fields, and watched friends fall beside him. But nothing prepared him for this. The scent of burnt flesh, the choking clouds of smoke, and the terrified. Screams of people who once believed the bells would save them. He moved through the chaos like a ghost, sword sheathed, eyes hollow. Everywhere he looked, the promise of mercy had been turned into fire. Daenerys flew overhead, Drogon pouring, flame on soldiers who had already surrendered, on towers that offered no resistance, on homes with children huddled inside. This wasn't war, this was wrath. Grey Worm, once a soldier of discipline, now led the Unsullied like a blade unchained, cutting down anyone in their path. Jon grabbed his arm mid-swing, stopping him from slaughtering a Lannister soldier already. On his knees, "We've won!" Jon shouted. "It's done!" Grey Worm yanked his arm away, face twisted in fury. "She commands! We obey!" But Jon saw the madness in his eyes. Not duty, fury. The same fury that had consumed their queen. Elsewhere in the city, Arya dodged falling debris and collapsing walls. Her eyes burned from the smoke. The child she had tried to save had died in her arms just minutes earlier, crushed by rubble. Her hands were covered in ash and blood, and her blade had not yet tasted a single drop of revenge. She moved like a shadow through the ruined streets toward the Red Keep. She wasn't here for Cersei anymore. She was here for Daenerys. In the heart of the destruction, Tyrion found the body of Jaime, crushed in the crypts beneath the red. Heaped beside Cersei, he wept alone, the last of his family gone, not by his hand but by a queen he had once believed could bring peace. He knew then that his loyalty had cost too much. He walked out through the smoke and flames, past burning corpses and charred banners, and up the steps of the broken keep, and he waited for her. Daenerys stood on the crumbled platform of the Red Keep by mid-afternoon. Her dragon coiled beside her like a god from old Valyria, smoke curling from its nostrils. Her eyes burned with triumph, but her expression was one of cold finality. Tyrion climbed the steps alone. She turned to him with a satisfied nod. "You saw what had to be done." He tossed the hand of the queen pin at her feet. "No, I saw what power did to you." She didn't flinch. "I gave them a choice. They chose fear. You burned them before they could make it." Her voice grew sharper. "I will build a better world. On bones," Tyrion said. "You've become the thing you were meant to destroy." She gestured to the guards. "Take him." Tyrion went quietly, but not before looking her in the eyes and saying, "He will come for you." Jon entered the keep near nightfall. The fires had died down, but the sky was still red, not from flame but from fury. He passed the corridors lined with broken stone and shattered thrones. Soldiers bowed as he passed, unsure of who he was now. The king in the north. Hidden heir? The man who could have stopped this? He found her standing at the top of the throne room steps. The iron throne stood before her, untouched by fire, its blades gleaming in the twilight. She turned when she heard him. "It's beautiful," Isn't it? She said. So many fought, died, and now it's here. Mine. Jon stepped slowly closer. At what cost? She smiled, her voice soft. They'll understand one day. You will too. We had to break the wheel. This is the only way. He swallowed hard. You said we would build a better world together. We will, she said. You and I, side by side. Jon stepped forward, close enough to feel her breath. She reached for his hand. I love you, she whispered. You are my blood, my fire. Jon's eyes shimmered. And you are my queen. She smiled. And then he stabbed her. A soft gasp escaped her lips. She looked at him, eyes wide, the betrayal blooming like blood from the wound. Jon held her as she fell, tears streaking his cheeks. I'm sorry, he whispered. I had no choice. Drogon screamed. The roar echoed across the city, louder than the bells, louder than the cries of war. The dragon landed beside its mother, nudged her body, then turned to Jon. He stood still, unflinching. Drogon reared back, not to kill Jon, but to destroy the throne. Flames engulfed the twisted metal, melting centuries of bloodshed into a river of steel. Then, without a word, Drogon picked up Daenerys's lifeless body and flew east, into the horizon, into legend. The war was over. But what came? Next was a kingdom without a queen, a king who never wanted to rule, and a realm too broken to be whole again. The throne was gone, melted, reduced to slag and memory. The body of Daenerys had vanished into the east with Drogon. The ashes of King's Landing still smoked days after the battle. What remained of the city's nobility, the lords and ladies, who had hidden during the siege, emerged like rats from ruins, uncertain of who ruled or what laws were left. Jon Snow sat in a cell beneath the Red Keep, though there was no throne left to protect. He had turned himself in, refusing to run, to fight, or to justify his actions. The chains around his wrists were light compared to the weight he carried in his chest. He had killed her, not a tyrant, not a stranger, the woman he once loved, his queen, his kin. Outside, council members gathered in what remained of the dragon pit. Sansa sat among them, her eyes colder than the north she would soon return to. Arya stood nearby, hands resting on the hilts of her weapons, silent but ready. Bran sat still, watching. Tyrion was brought forward, his wrists also bound, face drawn and gaunt. Grey Worm stood beside him, ever the loyal shadow of his fallen queen. His fury was undimmed. He murdered her, he said flatly. Justice demands his death. Tyrion looked around at the gathered lords, Samwell Tarly, Yara Greyjoy, Brienne, Gendry, Edmure Tully, and others. Who decides what justice is now? Tyrion asked. Who do we follow? A queen burned a city and died for it. Now what? Shall we let the Unsullied kill the man who saved the realm? Grey Worm growled. He betrayed her. He saved us, Sansa snapped. She left him no choice. She was the only one willing to break the wheel, Yara countered. He took that from her. And what would have been left? Arya said darkly. You didn't see what she did. Voices rose, arguments flared. Then Bran spoke, quiet, measured. Let him live. The silence that followed was eerie. Bran continued. Let him go beyond the wall. Let the realm think him dead. No crown, no glory, no comfort, only exile, like the one he chose once before. Sansa stared at him. He deserves more than exile. He deserves peace, Bran replied, but the realm needs to believe in justice, Tyrion added. It's fitting. He started there. Let him end there. Jon was told of the decision by Tyrion himself. They're letting me live? Jon asked, voice hoarse. Of a sort, Tyrion said. You're to return to the Knights. Watch what's left of it. Jon laughed bitterly. There's no watch, no wall, no enemies. There are always enemies, and peace needs men like you, even when they don't wear crowns. Jon nodded slowly. What about you? Tyrion smirked sadly. Sentenced to serve as hand, again. Poetic, isn't it? Jon placed a hand on his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For telling the truth when no one else could. They said their farewells on the docks. Arya hugged Jon tightly, whispering, You always did what no one else had the strength to do. I hope I never have to again, he murmured. She smiled faintly. I'm sailing west. No more thrones, no more war. Sansa embraced him. Last. You'll always have a home in Winterfell. He looked into her eyes. Take care of them. Be the queen they need. She nodded. You were always a Stark, Jon, no matter your name. Bran watched him go from the castle tower, birds circling above, the crownless king walking into exile. I hope he finds peace, Bran whispered. At the wall, Ghost waited for him, eyes bright and wild. Jon knelt, letting the direwolf nuzzle. Against him, rough fur brushing his cheek. He looked out beyond the wall. The wildlings stood ready, faces familiar and unknown. Tormund grinned. No more wars, eh? Jon smiled faintly. No more thrones either. And they rode, beyond the wall, beyond the scars of the world, into a land untouched by fire and blood. And in the silence of the north, Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, found what no king ever had. Not power, not legacy, but peace.